Okay, I'm delighted to be sitting beside a very special guest here today. He's one of the largest private investors in exploration stocks in Ireland. You've owned a few hotels and a few golf courses in your time. You once turned a pound investment in a mining stock into 7.5 million. You owned Cove Energy, which you sold in 2012 for 1.9 billion euros. It's my pleasure to introduce the very humble and very successful Tommy O'Gorman. Tommy, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. You're very welcome. Tommy, you're an investor, and I'd like to start by asking you, when did you start investing? When did you start getting into the investing business?
Started investing in my early 20s. Investing, it was in property, it was in jewellery, it was in shares. What I did at the start was I was just sort of going wherever the money was. If you follow the money in business, you'll never go far wrong. The guy once said, the trend is your friend.
Yeah.
So whatever the trend is at the time, that's the place to be, just to be in vogue, because sometimes different sectors get highs and they get lows.
Yeah.
So if you're in the same sector, you're going to get ups and downs in your business, but if you can move about to the sector that's in vogue at the time, you'll always get a better return at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's excellent. And was there a point whenever you first started where you thought, because a lot of people kind of get into business and they're in it a couple of years, and at the start they are feeling really challenged and they're wondering, oh, am I in the right business? Am I making the right investments? Was there a point when you realised this is definitely what I want to do? Or was it from very early on you felt like
very early on, but what you said there in relation to people challenging themselves if they're in the right business, that's healthy in business. Because if you continue in something, maybe you haven't looked at what else is out there. So it's good that people do reflect on what they're doing in business and always challenge themselves to see that they're doing the right thing for them at the right time for success.
Definitely.
And me, as I say, I was always motivated, I suppose, for success, having endured so much failure in the earlier years.
Yeah.
I was able to just find my way through the maze of all the opportunities that were out there. And when you get your first business deal done and you make a healthy profit, that's the catalyst for, I think, for being an early stage businessman, and you just build on that. But everybody, I think, needs to get that first sale.
Yeah.
You know, to give them the confidence that they need to build on that into a successful entrepreneur or successful businessman.
Yeah, it's interesting you touched on that point about having the first bit of success. I watched an interview with a guy called Mark Cuban. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a Canadian entrepreneur. He's a billionaire businessman. But he was saying that you only have to win once, and if you win once big, then it can change your life. And that's very relevant to what you just said as well.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But it's not always the first time. It's more luck, I suppose, than skill to win big the first time.
Yeah.
But I think any win is a sort of a starting point. But certainly if you win big, I don't know, I think if you win big, sometimes it can spoil you, because if you get failure after huge success, it's a bit of a challenge to overcome that. If you can build some sort of a sort of a platform that you can build on. If you win big, it's very hard to make. I mean, after Cove Energy, with 1.9 billion the company was sold for, it's very hard to do the next deal on par or higher than that. You're obviously going to be a lot lower in your next deal. Sure. So this is why, I remember going into the bookie shop one day. I don't gamble, but I remember into the bookie shop one day and I had a couple of £100. And I went in and I backed the horse and I won a substantial amount of money, thousands. But I thought this was a great, easy way to make money. I went in the next day and I lost everything plus what I started out with. So the lessons there, sometimes success can be a liability. Not properly, controlled. When I get success now, I just move on for the next deal. I don't reflect really on, every time I go into a deal, I've always the fear, which is good on the fear. Fear and greed drives capital markets. And greed, while in excess, is a bad thing, and fear in excess is bad. But you need a wee bit of fear and greed when you're trading, because you need the fear to always protect yourself if something goes wrong, and you need the greed to drive you forward in limited proportions. I mean, when you talk about, and another thing as well, envy and jealousy are also motivators in the correct measurement.
It's interesting you say that, because I listened to someone there recently and they were saying like a slight chip on the shoulder can actually be a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a motivator.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never heard that until recently.
It's true. I mean, I know it for a fact because I've lived with it.
I'm
67 now, and as I say, I've gone through most situations that young people have ahead of them.
Yes,
And I think you can't always lead a young person's life for them, but you can certainly, there was an old cliche that used to say, learn by other people's mistakes, not your own.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but it's always something to bear in mind. If you're thinking of doing something, maybe reflect on someone that did it before and how they fared with it, and then might help you to make the proper decisions, maybe to do better.
Yes. You touched on it there earlier. It was... some people maybe don't come from that kind of like upbringing where they've got the education that they think they need to be successful, or they come from a family that maybe invested in them with their time or with money or whatever. But you're obviously a massive example of somebody who has had challenges in their lives and has maybe used the challenges, not maybe, but definitely used the challenges to become more resilient and become more dynamic, with the challenges you may have faced in business in later life. Would that be the case, yeah?
Well, what I find is, and I still find, and I would still think very strongly about, every child is a genius.
Oh my gosh, such a brilliant statement. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's all they want is really the opportunity, the encouragement to get out there and achieve what it is they want to do. You can tell a child to do something, and you can ask a child to do something, or you can show a child to do something. There's different approaches that you can do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think every child is a genius. And I mean, if you look at where I am today and where I was then, I should never be here.
Totally.
I don't have an office and I'm 67. I don't have employees. I don't have a computer.
Yeah.
I'm not a smart guy. I just like buying and selling.
Yeah.
I'm also lazy.
Really?
I was always lazy, and I could never keep a job. When I started out, I used to work in factories. I worked in shops. I remember working for a kitchen company one time. They sent me out to measure a kitchen. I only took the job because I was getting a car.
Yeah. I
went out to measure the kitchen and I measured it wrong, got the sack. I worked in factories. I was lazy. I was recognised for being lazy, and I got the sack.
Where do you think that laziness tag came from?
I think you're born with it.
Really?
Yes, I think. But you see, what I learned to do, I suppose, I learned to use my weaknesses as strengths.
Right.
So by being lazy, you looked at some task that you had to undertake. If it was a business deal, if it was a job you had to do, and you looked at it from a lazy man's point of view, and you found an easier way to do it. By finding an easier way to do it, if you apply it to business, it means it's just going to be cost saving and time saving, which is very important in business.
Yes.
So by me being lazy, most people would consider that as a weakness. I consider it now as a strength, because it's helped me to make easy money rather than making hard money.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's an amazing. I never even came into my head, but it's definitely true. It's probably helped you become a lot more efficient with what you do.
This is it. And then when you become successful, you become confident.
Yes.
And the whole thing is, if you get too confident, that's whenever that you really become dangerously liable. Because the thing about it is, if you get too confident, you think you're better than you are, and that's when you'll fall.
Yeah.
You know.
And I suppose I've known you for 2 weeks now, and I've been on the phone to you several times. And I think what has struck me about you in our conversations is the importance of being humble, but also being, taking an opportunity whenever it comes as well. Like, how important is it being humble and being treating people with respect? You mentioned earlier.
You see, I knew. Well, I wouldn't class myself as humble, but I would class myself as, if you give respect, you get respect.
Yeah.
I think myself that everybody deserves respect, and when I was young, it was a different sort of a world than it is now. And there wasn't much respect about at that time for workers.
Yes.
And you weren't asked to do something, you were told to do it.
Yes.
Now, under all the new legislation, you have to be asked to do it, but in those days they told you what to do, and it was much harder. So I think people generally, I know in my case, certainly in my business, if you give people respect and you ask them, they will do whatever it is that you need done. If you tell them to do something, they might do it, but they wouldn't in the same, how would I put it, the way of doing it for you, as opposed to if you were encouraging them.
Yes.
When I buy my hotels, as soon as I go in, people would be making a big fuss about the new owner coming in, and they'd be rushing about, and they'd be introducing you to staff and everything else. But in all the hotels I've owned, as soon as I said, look, my name's Tommy.
Yes.
And what's your name?
Yeah.
And that was it from day one.
Yeah.
I only ever had one Asian gentleman that worked for me as a manager out of a couple of hundred staff I had in one particular hotel. And I would say, my name's Tommy. Yes, Mr. O'Gorman. Do you know what I mean? It's just, he had so much respect.
Yes,
but I think it was his culture and his nature.
Yes, yeah.
Which was great. But at the same time, I found whenever I went anywhere, these people couldn't do enough for you because they seen you as a colleague, not as boss.
Yeah.
And if they had a problem, they would come to me with their problem, and I would help them with their problem.
Yes.
If you distance yourself from people that work for you by putting up these corporate walls sort of thing, you don't really know what's going on in your business. If I have a guy with a problem, or if you have someone with a problem and you help them, the whole staff
hears about that.
See what you're doing and know that you care about them, and should they need something the next day, that you're there for them. It's a great atmosphere to work in.
Yeah. You said something earlier about, do you know, whenever you come in and you say hello to staff and they're happy, or they feel valued, I think it was something along those lines, that they perform better.
Of course they do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, everybody's a human being. I mean, money doesn't make the man makes money.
Totally.
And like, I mean, you know, my life would be very frugal. My lifestyle would be very humble. I don't drink, smoke, gamble, socialise. I don't dine out. I don't take holidays. I'm very happy going about. I go to the local coffee shops. I go to the local ice cream parlour. I enjoy my day doing that. I go for walks on my own. And I just find that's enough for me in my life.
I watched the interview with RTE, and you went to a graveyard. And
yes, I love graveyards.
Oh my gosh, I found that fascinating. Because, so you were saying that it helps you. You go in and you see like different names on these graveyards, right? And then you reflect upon, maybe there's people here in these graveyards that, if they had been given a second chance to come back, they would live a very, very different life.
See, every one of them would. And the thing about it is, what I find in graveyards, it's like a trip down memory lane. When I would walk through the graveyards, I would say, oh, there's John. I worked with John years ago, and it brings you back to a time in your life whenever that you work with these people. And you know, it then humbles you to realise, you know, how you've moved on since then. But really, I would say to anybody, wealth is something that's, I believe, you know, is something that should be used to help others. If people who take and hoard wealth, it's really not much use to you. You know, like, I mean, if you're going to hoard wealth and not use it for the benefit of others, well then, what's the point of having it? If you're going to indulge in it yourself, like, I mean, if you have 5 or 10 million in the bank, what are you going to do with it? You're going to go out and you're going to buy a fast car, you know, which is dangerous to yourself and others.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, why not just go out and buy a nice second-hand car, do a bit of negotiating with the salesman, feel you got a bargain, and don't if somebody went to school watching you going down the road in a Rolls Royce saying, who does he think he is? Right away, you've created a barrier. I mean, I could have bought a Rolls Royce, I could have bought a Bentley. And people just say, well, I remember going to school with Tommy, and like, you know,
he must have changed. What's going on now? Like, he's driving a Bentley.
And they're free to talk to you. In fact,
I think you're right, and I think like wealth, like a certain amount of expression of wealth, like a Rolls Royce, makes people feel uncomfortable because they see it as, oh, that's what success is. When success isn't that. Success is progress, isn't it? Really?
I mean, if I had a Rolls Royce in the morning, I wouldn't get into it. I wouldn't drive it. I don't have personalised number plates. I was offered TOG one time. And I said, not for me.
No way.
You know, why would I want to drive a TOG one? You know, because people say, you know, the man's lost it, you know.
I know. And, that's very refreshing to hear that. So
it is. I mean, I spend my day helping people who can't help themselves. And I can't tell you the pleasure I get out of that.
That's lovely.
Feel good that if you have someone, it might be someone who needs medical attention and there's a waiting list and you can give them the money to get it done. It could be someone maybe that has got a bill to pay and they're distressed and not sleeping at night about it. It might only be, in some cases, £200 or £300, but it does worry some people. And the fact that I can hand out 300 quid and never miss it, but you've changed somebody's life in a sense that, you know,
forever. You have, like, because maybe people have the view that nobody cares, and then all of a sudden somebody who's generous with their money and who wants to see people, you know, progress and be happier. That could have a life-changing effect.
Another thing I do when I walk down the street, there's some lonely people in all towns and cities. I get in the street and there'd be people I would see and they'd be walking like this. They're always very sad and they're always on their own. And I always make a point of speaking to them.
Yeah.
How are you today? Hello. And they'll look at you with suspicion.
I don't know
why.
Yeah.
And they'll walk on. And if you do it often enough, there's one particular chap, every time I see him, he'd be sitting, he'd be eating like this at the table on his own. He would like and say, well, how are you? You know. And, well, how are you today? You know. But I was sitting the other day, and funny enough, I was on the phone with my mobile device. He didn't realise I was on the phone because I was connected to the earpiece. But next thing I was, he came up, he started talking to me.
Yes.
I was sitting outside the Boulevard restaurant. He came up, he started. He says, "It's going to be in a bit of a day." And right away, I was having a conversation, and that to me makes everything worthwhile.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you built up a bit of a consistency with that, and then he trusted that. And I think that's it. A lot of people, you know, if they get people who approach them and they build up that trust, it can be just a little low or, you know, consistent conversation can be really important to them. I wanted to touch on, you know, obviously we had mentioned about, you know, turning that one punt, I think it was at the time.
That was an option. Yes. That was a lucky one.
Well, no, that's great. I'm happy that it was lucky for you. It turned into 7.5 million. Obviously, not every investment goes like that. But was that one of your early big wins, or what was that like?
No, well, I would already have been very successful and very wealthy at that time. Yeah. It was just another success, which, again, it wasn't something that I could have repeated. It was just an opportunity that I just got lucky with. Yeah. It's like, look, if you go into the bookies and there's 20 horses and you back one,
you can get
very rarely a skill. If you get the bottom, even in the stock market, if you get the bottom of a stock or the top of the stock, 99.9% is because you're lucky, not because you're clever. You know. Yeah. And I've always seen my success as that. It's just I've been lucky, I think, and you know, I've been fortunate enough to have been given, you know, wealth.
Yes.
And I think myself, I don't have a lot of use for wealth because my life's very simple, very plain, and I enjoy helping people that need help. To be honest,
that's very apparent from anything I've.
When I had one lady now, and she was in trouble at Christmas, and she needed an operation.
Yes.
And I was told about her. She was depressed. She was suicidal. She lived on her own. And it was around Christmas, and I thought to myself, you know, what am I going to buy myself at Christmas that I haven't got?
Yeah.
So I round her up the door, and I said, listen, would you let me pay for your operation?
Yeah.
As a Christmas box for me.
Sure.
This is not for you. This is for me.
Sure.
To help me get something that I really
want to spend out at Christmas. Yeah, of course.
And she did. So she benefited, and I benefited. But to me, there's nothing that I could have spent that few £1,000s on.
Yeah.
That would have given me
as much pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, totally. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like money is so unimportant right now after all these conversations. But I wanted to ask you about, you know, when you sold Cove Energy.
Yes.
Can you take me back to that and take me back to, like, after the sale went through, what your feelings and emotions were? Did you celebrate? Was there like any feeling of real happiness after it, or
no? Well, first of all, Cove Energy was a public company, and there was other shareholders.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And there's a lot of people made hundreds of millions out of it. And to be honest with you, in Cove Energy, if I'm being very honest with you, I saw greed. Bare greed.
Right, okay.
Which was a bit of a shock to me.
Okay.
I was the creator.
Yeah.
I was the instigation.
Sure.
And it's amazing. It's an education to see how money changes people.
Yeah.
Friends, work colleagues, I was shocked.
Okay.
The money to me, as I say, basically, again, an awful lot of the people who were involved with me, you know, they had different ways of dealing with success, but I never I just stayed the way I was because I don't want to be someone that money changes me, because I think that's you know, it's very hard to justify.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
We'll move on and talk about the Northern Ireland Science Park and your involvement in the Generation Innovation Programme. You're one of the major backers to that. Obviously, investing in people is something that's really important to you in a business sense and in a personal sense. But there was a lovely quote that I saw in the Irish News, and you said, "I want to teach young people how to make life simpler for themselves."
They lost the lazy element of me. Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable, because I know myself personally, like I tend to make things quite complex that don't need to be complex. Yeah. Like, I'd love to hear what you even go into that like a wee bit more about making it simpler. Like,
well, I'll give you an idea. I was chairman of 7 companies in my life, and whenever I would look at, we'll say, maybe an exploration asset somewhere in the world, it could be Africa, it could be Russia, anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
You'd maybe get a 200 to 300 page report prepared with all the aspects of the particular asset.
Yeah.
I, not been well educated, not been terribly intelligent, would have great difficulty when I get to page 3. I forgot what's on page 1, let alone to get through 300. So I would go back to the board and say, would you give that to a technician? That's what they call the backroom people, the brain boxes. Yeah. Would you give that to a technician and tell him to break that down into a 1-page bullet point for me?
Yeah.
And on that, I would get a 1-page bullet point, and I can just go up and down it this here.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the sort of thing. I think it was one of the local businessmen, I think, or one of the local English businessmen said, if you can't write it on the back of a tissue, it's too complicated.
I love that.
And I think that would be fair. I hate complicated.
Yeah.
I'm a salesman. I can buy, I can sell, but that stops with me. The logistics of actually going through all the sales processes and all goes to solicitors and accountants. Yeah. But I just don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say that, you know, if you're dealing in contracts and if it's more than 2 or 3 pages, then it's not, I think it was Warren Buffett, he said, it's not really a contract that I want to go into. Because if it's more complex, I mean, if you're doing something that's that complex, then there maybe is possibly something behind that, you know.
Well, the thing about it is, you see, my simple logic has always been, if you don't understand it and it breaks, you can't fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
So why would you bother with it?
Yeah.
Because then you're depending on somebody else to fix it for you.
Sure, sure.
So I think if you keep everything simple, I mean, simplicity is so easy. For anyone can do simplicity.
Yeah.
Just a matter of using it in business in a productive way, you know.
Yeah. So one of, like, some of your major strengths are simplifying things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what else would be like a major strength that you would think, or that you would say to somebody that's starting out their business, from your experience, you would say, right, I would work on that, or I would work on this. What would it be, like other things?
Well, how do you mean now?
I mean, right, so sometimes, like I was saying, like how I would complicate things, and if I was to start up business, I would look at maybe simplifying things a little bit more to become more efficient.
Well, what you want to do if you're young and you're starting business, you really need to know your product inside out. Yeah. Because it's easy for someone like me that has success behind me and wealth to sell something. Yeah. But when someone's starting out, they're at the very bottom.
Yes.
So they really need to cut their teeth, for want of a better thing. Okay. So you've got to know everything. Yeah. I get a lot of investors coming to me, sort of like a junior's ragging den. Sure. And like, I don't be trying to catch them. I just ask them sensible, relative questions to the business opportunity they're presenting me with, and they don't know the answers. Yeah. I say, how much money do you need? Oh, I don't know. What return am I going to get in my investment? Well, I don't know. Yeah. How long is this investment going to be for? So right away, you've lost your pitch. Yeah. So you're going to go into business. Know everything about it back to front. Yes. Inside out. And if someone sits down with you and you're asking someone to invest in you with their money, you've got to give them the confidence that you know what you're doing, that you're going to be successful. And one of the things I always do, well, I would be very generous with people who are starting out, because basically you have to make allowances because they're starting out. Yes, of course. But generally speaking, if you're going to invest in something, you really need to have belief in the person's ability to deliver what they're selling. And, unfortunately, a lot of the time that just doesn't happen, Yeah,
and a lot of people maybe are so self-critical when they're first starting out that they don't believe in themselves, and then they're putting that like sort of lack of belief out there, and then that's the person who's investing in them is picking up on that, and then there's a barrier to
well, what you need to do in business, Chris, is you really need to be honest with people. Yeah. And particularly be honest with yourself. Yeah. I mean, if you go out and let's just give you an idea, one of the young competitors we had in one of the competitions we ran, he was actually very good.
Yeah.
He came in with this particular product that he had, but in actual fact it was a bluff, because what he done was he went out the night before and got a few bits and pieces and put them together and told us this was a great product that he developed. And he had everybody thinking that this was a great product that he had.
Right.
So to me, he wasn't a good creator, but he was a genius of a salesman.
Yeah.
You know, and lucky enough, as I say, like, I mean, whenever that I challenged him on the stuff, if he had been a bit more maybe research into what he had developed, but whenever I dug her deep in,
a wee bit deeper,
you could see the cracks. But initially, on the face of it, he was a great salesman.
I know, and it's about being more deep than that, like, isn't it? As you said,
it, you know. So you have to be honest. Like, I mean, if you're going in with people, honesty comes across a lot of the time.
No,
you know, and say, do what you say and say what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. Let me see. Okay, right. And you know, we were talking about the Science Business Park, and I watched one of the interviews where you worked with school kids. I think it was the Science Business Park worked alongside school kids in St Coleman's, and one of the things that I wanted to touch upon was for people who are leaving school and they're going into the world of work. There seems to be a little bit of a gap in some schools where the focus is so much on get an exam result or get questions right, rather than develop upon leadership, develop upon the skills that we all have, but just keep developing upon them. What do you think we should do in terms of schooling? I think,
me personally, I think that before young people go out into the world, particularly in business, they should be given the opportunity to have a one-to-one or small group of them to talk to business people. People that, you know, would be in the sector that they want to go into. If someone wanted to trade shares, I could talk to them because I know shares inside out for 45 years. Somebody wanted to, say, do any field, talk to people in that field who are successful. But they should get that before they go out there, to put them on the right path from day one. Because early success will always breed success, and it'll give them confidence to move forward. Someone goes out there and they try something that doesn't work, you know, a lot of the time it's hard for them to recover. They lose the confidence. And people need to be told, you know,
that this is part of it. This is actually part of it.
Exactly.
And people who've been through that experience of the ups and downs of the business world come into it. And that was another thing I wanted to touch on. Like, as a business community, are we sort of, like, you're definitely doing it, but are we providing the kind of mentoring programs for people who are just starting up that can help guide them and help them being successful?
And one of the things that I do, which unfortunately the education system doesn't do and doesn't happen, where I think it should happen, is that young people with good business ideas, they need funding. And the government doesn't do it, the schools don't do it, and so that's really what the lack is, a chicken and egg. You know what I mean? So there needs to be some sort of funding available for young people to start. You know, to give them encouragement, I think.
No, definitely.
I provide that in any of the stuff I do. You know, and indeed, if you have any young people that have good business ideas and they want to contact me, I would certainly let
Totally, well, 100%. And hopefully with this interview, you know, that can happen. You know, we'll put it out on social media.
And as I said, I mean, I just give them an opinion. Now, me, myself, I do be fairly, you know, busy. But I've got one particular partner who I work with, and he's 24.
Class.
He's in that sphere. And he would be more than happy to look at any business opportunities on my behalf. If he came to me and said, look, this is a great idea, then I don't have a problem funding it. But you find now that most of modern businesses are all internet related. And I never learned the internet. I don't have a computer. So someone to try and suggest or to sell me a technology-based idea, it wouldn't be fair, because I couldn't give them an understanding of what they're trying to tell me. So this young man that I have, he's a genius. And so he's the man. He's the guy to talk to. He's the guy to talk to.
No, definitely. You said in that, remember the RTE interview that we watched, or that I saw, I don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard. I want to have peace and contentment. what for you, I'm getting a sense that peace and contentment for you is to be able to serve others and to be able to help others.
That is peace and contentment.
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't know if you ever seen the last words of Steve Jobs, did you?
Do you know what? I saw it on a YouTube video, but I thought it was that sad that I didn't even look at it. But you can tell me.
Well, I've read it, and I must admit, I did reflect on it, and it was very touching. But he did say that people in pursuit of wealth all their lives, they miss, life goes so quick.
Yeah.
And another thing that I find as well is people get older, they want to leave a legacy.
Yes, absolutely.
And
that's understandable, isn't it? It's totally understandable. Yeah.
You don't want to be laying on your deathbed with all the wealth,
and
not have done anything with it other than to indulge in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many young people out there. I really feel sorry for young people. A lot of them are so talented and they just don't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And if they don't get the funding and they don't get the proper opportunities, they're forced into a job that maybe sets them on the wrong course for life, I think.
Yeah, and you touched on a really interesting point there, because it might be something just as simple as a business mentor or somebody who has been successful that can maybe change how they see themselves and how they can approach the market. And it could be just one meeting or one conversation that could start that all off.
Totally, that's right. Yeah. I do think myself, as I say, young people need to be supported, encouraged. You need to give them confidence.
Definitely, without a doubt. Because sometimes we're coming from the best meaning families, the best meaning schools. But I was saying this to Sam earlier, that we get a lot of the messages: you can't do it. No, you're not good enough. Oh, you got that wrong.
Yeah.
They don't focus on maybe you got a lot of other things right. We focus on the problem or the mistake.
If you look for problems, you get problems. If you look for success, you get success.
Totally.
That's what I look for.
That's a good thing to look for. I think we touched on this earlier about being humble in business, and you said a lot about how some people get money and they get very, very like a little bit of success, and that goes to their head. And you touched on a point off camera. You said about how that creates a barrier and it prevents people even sort of learning from each other and going into business together potentially. Was that something you wanted to talk about?
I've had a lot of issues with that, and in the time as well. I've gone into business for 30 years, people, and just success went to their head. And it's a pity because they had so much potential. Yeah. And sometimes whenever that you think you're better than what you are, then it's very difficult to be successful because you're always looking for new heights too quick. Yes. You're always, if someone comes into a room to you and they start, overselling themselves. Yes. What I prefer in any person is, and I always do it myself, is if you go in and you pitch yourself at a high level, it's very hard to stay up there and rise above it. Yes. I'd rather come in on the ground at a low level and rise. Yes. It's better to surprise than to disappoint. Yes, I love that phrase. So if you go into somebody and you're saying, I'm wonderful, I'm Mr. This, you can't really do much, but you're going to disappoint people then whenever you go to do a task. But if you come in and say, look, I don't know, I'll have a go, and all of a sudden you succeed, you've surprised people. So it's a much better feeling to yourself. It's better for business, surprise rather than disappoint. I've actually said that the other day to a young man I'd working for me, and I said, look, he says, what'll I do here? He says, what'll I do? Well, I try it. I said, look, better to surprise and disappoint. Say nothing until you have it succeeded and then tell people you've done it. Rather than saying, if you look at something, how do we do that? Do it and then stand back and say, God, how do I do that? You know what I mean? Totally. I love that phrase. When you were starting out in business, or whenever you were coming up in business, did you have somebody that mentored you? You had nobody? No. What? That's amazing. Because they're always saying this now at the moment, like you got these performance coaches, which I'm sure a lot of them do great jobs, but they say that the importance of being mentored, but you had nobody. No, well, I had nobody. I was orphaned at 14 and a half. I walked the streets. When you are at that age, and did you have somewhere to stay? Well, you were sort of bedding down here and there with an aunt or whatever. I was very fortunate then. After about a year, I had an uncle and an aunt in Uri who took me in, and I owe her everything because really, she gave me stability in my life. Yes. But when you're like that, nobody really wants to do anything with. They want to avoid you. If they seen you coming up the street, and they walk the other side. Yeah. In case you ask them for something. Yeah. So no, I had no mentor at all. It's a sort of a thing where It's just everybody has a natural ability to survive.
Yes. We're such survivors,
yes.
aren't we?
And I think a lot of the time, certainly what gave me the inner strength was, I think sometimes when you go that low, there's no other way to go only back up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I would pitch myself. I was just about as low as you want to go.
Yeah. What made you decide to go up, or what made you decide, right, I'm going to stick around?
Desperation.
Did it?
Yeah, like I mean, you know, you've no food.
Yeah.
You have no money. You know, like I mean, you have to do something. You know, you have to live.
Yeah.
So as I say, you just go out, you get a job, and you know, you just try and move. It's a struggle, and this is why I don't think that young people who find themselves in similar situations should have to struggle.
Yeah.
You know, there's enough success and there's enough wealth in our country.
Of course there is.
To help those people.
Yeah.
And I think there's not enough resources going to those, particularly young people. Young people are starting out in life, and they're the ones that really need guidance, they need support. You need to install confidence in them, you need to encourage them.
Yeah, they're the future economy as well, aren't they?
They are the future economy.
Yeah. Well, why do you think people who have been really successful aren't as giving? Like, is it an ego thing? Is it like, I have to keep up with certain status? I have
find
to have
that,
home?
I mean, I've been to nearly everywhere.
Yeah.
And I find that, you know, when you do go up higher into society, there is a mentality there, you know, of, it's a selfish mentality, not all the time, but there's a lot of it there, you know. I'm more comfortable with, you know, with ordinary people like myself.
Yeah.
I find I'm very uncomfortable in high society.
Right.
I've been there through business. I've had to go there,
but that you only went there because of business. You didn't.
Very uncomfortable there, and I want to get. You know, I remember going to a dinner one night in a place called Paragebo. Have you ever heard tell of it?
I haven't. No.
It's in the Marion Hotel in Dublin.
Right. Okay.
And I was there with a big corporation. They were looking to do a business deal with me, and it was all, you know, like even the food, pigeon's liver and stuff like that on a big plate and this thing on it. But I had to go through the motion. I was there as a chairman. I was representing my shareholders, so I had to do what I had to do for them. I was representing them. But as soon as I left the meeting, I went around to Burger King and got a burger.
I love
That's what I wanted. You know what I mean? In Dublin. This is true. And then I got the bus home.
Yeah.
I travel on the bus.
What?
Yeah, I have a limousine at home. It's only there for work, but I travel on the bus. I've got a bus pass like everybody else. I
have a friend who travels on the bus. He doesn't drive. He would love to hear that. So
it's true. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, I paid millions in taxes. I'm entitled to me bus pass.
Of course.
I've only used it a couple of times. But I mean, I don't travel that much. But if I'm going to Dublin, you see, another very simple analogy is if I take a chauffeur to take me to Dublin, I get up in the morning to get a chauffeur to take you to Dublin. When you're driving to Dublin, you can't sit with the chauffeur in the back or the front and not talk to the guy.
Yeah, of course.
You're going to have a conversation with him, which is fair enough. I have no issue with that.
Sure.
But the problem is you're draining your battery, because instead of spending the time having a generalised conversation with this gentleman that's driving you up, you could be studying where you're going, what you're going to do, and preparing for your meeting.
Yes.
So that's why I go on the bus.
That's fascinating.
On the bus, nobody bothers with you. You get on the bus. I walk into Newry. It's a mile from my house to the bus station. I walk in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I get on. I go in and get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I get on the bus and I sit and I look at my meeting notes.
Yeah.
I do my bit of thinking. I always arrive early. Yeah. I always get into a hotel an hour before a meeting. I freshen myself up if it's a wet day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get breakfast. I fix myself up. I go to the toilet, that I'm not running out to the toilet in the middle of the meeting.
Yeah.
I prepare myself for the meeting. I have a very successful meeting. And that's, you know, I think everything else, you have to, preparation's everything. You know, even if you're decorating, preparation's everything. It's easy to put wallpaper on the wall, but it's getting the wall prepared for it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's in business.
Yeah.
I mean, if you prepare for something, it'll actually come across. You're getting the best possible chance you have.
Yeah.
And
being successful. Yeah.
I've gone to meetings in Dublin where these guys are coming running around the corner from one meeting into another meeting with me. And the first thing they'll ask you is, now, what are we here for? I don't know what they're there for.
Yeah. And you can feel it as soon as they walk in the door. Whenever like the vibe they're putting out, you can feel it. They haven't been prepared.
Do you know what I mean? And if you're well up to speed in what you're doing, like, I mean, you know, you really perform very well because they're your competition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they're your pitch. So, you know, there's an awful lot in self-discipline.
Yeah.
If you're going out, if I'm going to Dublin at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm in bed at 9 o'clock at night.
That's class. Yeah.
But I want to get up in the morning. I don't want to be tired at lunchtime. I want to keep going all day. So you need your rest.
You do. You need to be prepared for it, don't you?
I mean, if I'm out at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, going to bed at 2 and getting up at 6.
It's not the same. Yeah.
If I'm up in the morning at 6, 11 o'clock in the day, I'm knackered.
Yeah. How do you like? I mean, you say you don't employ people, you don't have like an office and things like that, but you seem to have like a lot of energy. I mean, you have a lot of energy. Obviously, you're doing what you love to be doing, so that gives more expression to energy. But like, I mean, at your age, how do you keep,
Well, do you know what gives me energy, Chris? It's actually success.
Really?
If I was getting failure, I wouldn't have the energy I have. It's success. I mean, if you help someone, you feel so good after it.
Yeah.
If you do a business deal and it's a successful, you see an opportunity and you capitalise on it. It's a boost.
Yeah.
I'm a deal junkie. For want of a better word,
Yes,
you know.
yeah.
And so success will always give you energy. It'll always give you enthusiasm. It'll always give you satisfaction. It will give you a brilliant life if you're successful at what you do.
Yeah, and it's about putting putting the preparation in place before.
Preparation is everything.
Yeah.
Like, like even you bake a cake, you have the right ingredients.
Yeah.
As long as you prepare for anything, you're going to give it your best shot.
Yeah.
If you go in somewhere and you haven't done your research,
you
haven't, tested and trialed your product, whatever you're trying to sell, well, right away that'll come across at your presentation, and you may as well stay at home.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to kind of save the most important points to the end. You're quite a religious man.
Yes.
Would you be a religious man? Would that be fair?
Well, I'd be fair to say to you now that I don't go to church anymore.
Sure.
I have a personal relationship with God.
There you go. Yeah.
And I know God's in my life.
Yeah.
He's been there for me a lot of times when I've needed him, particularly when I was young. When I reflect and look back on my earlier life, I know God was with me because some of the situations I was able to get through. Stephen today is unbelievable. Like, the way that I was able to get out of situations and and move forward. So yes, I think God's with everybody.
Yeah.
People look for God in in different places and different things. God's in there.
Yeah.
Your conscience is part of God.
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, you know you did wrong. If you do something right, you feel good. You do something wrong, you feel bad. That's God in there. So I don't need to go looking for God anywhere.
Sure.
He's with me. He's in me.
Yeah.
And I think if you encourage that, godly sort of person in you, you'll be a better person because you'll be able to express it.
Yeah, you're bringing that presence to different people.
So I always find that now, as I say. So I have great peace in relation to being with God
and what you're doing.
It gives you great strength.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So I wanted to kind of finish up with the. If you had so people who are watching this, right? If you could give them one kind of final piece of guidance or the things that you've learned that you would pass on to them, what would it be?
It would be what I said to you earlier, that every child is a genius.
Yeah.
Everybody has an equal opportunity. And I think, as I said in the Nationwide interview, you're only beat when you give up.
I love that. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And to be the best, you have to beat the best. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be the best, but you've got to aim to be the best at what you do.
Yeah.
Because then you'll always achieve a certain degree of success to help you move forward. So you actually said earlier there, people themselves put themselves down. I couldn't do that. Or else your parents said, no, you can't do that. Anybody can do anything if they set their mind to it. Yeah. And by trial and error is the only way you'll ever get success.
Yeah.
So I think that really everybody needs to believe in themselves. If you have a child, believe in your child. Give him the support that he needs. Let him develop himself. Because definitely I believe every child is a genius.
Yeah.
And they just need the opportunity to develop into that genius and not be swayed or controlled in any way, whether it be by schools or parents or anything else.
Yeah.
Let everybody develop into what they want to be. I think so.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's an excellent message.
Because they are individuals. They have their whole life ahead of them. So they're the most important person really that needs to make the decisions for their life. Yeah. All you can do is give them advice. But don't tell them what to do, but advise them what you think they should do, and let them make their own decision. That gives them the confidence, to actually be an adult.
Yeah. Kids learn by doing rather than anything else. Don't
they? Example.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Tommy, absolute pleasure.
My pleasure.
Really enjoyed that.
No bother at all.
Thank you for
coming.
Yeah, love it. Thanks.